All right, everybody, get ready, because we're about to take a deep, deep dive into the world of childcare workers. You know how people say it's more than just a job? Well, we're going to find out if that's really true for this career. And don't worry, we've done the heavy lifting, sifted through tons of info guides, reports, the work, so you'll get the good stuff, the juicy insights, without having to read a mountain of documents.
Exactly. And it's amazing what you find when you connect the dots between these different sources. Sometimes it's the stuff that's not said outright that really makes you think.
Okay, so first up, this career guide, childcare worker. And right away, boom, they hit you with the emotional angle, calling it a truly fulfilling journey. Like, wow, sign me up, right? But then, not even a paragraph later, they're talking about low pay and high stress. It's kind of like, change the world one diaper at a time, but don't expect a thank you or a big paycheck.
hmm
Do you think that whole fulfillment thing is partly a way to attract people, especially with all the staffing shortages we keep hearing about in childcare?
Yeah, it's interesting how that works. You see this tension a lot in caregiving jobs. Huge emotional rewards, obviously. You're nurturing young minds. But those rewards don't always translate to, financial stability or a stress-free workday.
And speaking of stress, this guide doesn't sugarcoat the physical demands. Lifting, carrying, being on your feet for hours, possible exposure to illnesses. It's definitely not for the faint of heart, is it?
No, it's demanding, that's for sure. Physically and emotionally. You need a special set of skills to do this job well. What I find fascinating is that often the entry-level requirements are pretty low, like just a high school diploma. But then the actual work dealing with different kids, some with special needs, can be super complex.
It's kind of crazy when you think about it. You could be barely out of high school yourself, responsible for a whole room of toddlers. That's a lot of responsibility.
Absolutely. And it's in those moments that things like CPR and first aid certifications, they're not just boxes to check.
Yeah.
Imagine being the only adult around when a child starts choking. That certification could be the difference between knowing exactly what to do and, well, panicking.
Wow. Yeah. When you put it like that, it really highlights the weight of the responsibility they carry.
Yeah, it's not just babysitting, that's for sure.
Okay.
And you know what else adds a whole other layer to this whole thing?
What's that?
Technology.
Oh, right. Like even childcare is getting a tech makeover these days. This guide mentions how childcare centers are using software now for stuff like scheduling and keeping track of records. What do you make of that?
Well, it's part of the bigger trend, right? Technology is everywhere, so it makes sense it's showing up in childcare too.
Mm.
On the one hand, if software can handle those admin tasks, maybe that frees up childcare workers to actually,
Hmm.
spend more quality time with the kids. But then it makes you wonder, are we okay with tech playing such a big role in this field? It's a tricky one.
Yeah, it's a good question for anyone listening to think about. Streamlining tasks, that's one thing, but yeah, we don't want to lose that essential human element when it comes to taking care of little ones.
Exactly. Finding that balance, tech versus human touch, that's going to be key. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we jump into the whole tech side of things, let's rewind and get back to the career path itself.
Sounds good. So this guide has a whole section on career stages. It basically maps out how you go from entry-level childcare worker to a coordinator position. It's giving me serious climb the ladder vibes. Like you start on one rung, get some experience under your belt, maybe some extra training, and then bam, you level up.
I like that analogy. And it shows that even in a field that's not known for, let's be honest, amazing salaries, there's still room to move up.
Yeah.
Of course, this guide is very clear that it's not always a straight shot to the top. And when you factor in the challenges we talked about earlier, the demanding work, the pay situation, it does make you wonder, is climbing this particular career ladder, is it really worth it in the end?
That's the big question, isn't it? Like, is it worth it? This guide tries to show both sides of the coin. On the one hand, they're honest about the downsides, low pay, potential for burnout, all that. But then they're like, hey, look at all the awesome skills you'll gain. Communication, teamwork, problem solving. It's almost like they're saying, even if you don't stay in childcare forever, you'll come out of it with superpowers you can use anywhere.
Yeah. It's like those skills are transferable credits. You can take them with you to a whole new career if you want to. And this ties into something else the guide emphasizes, networking, putting yourself out there. It's not just what you know in childcare, it's who you know, how you present yourself.
Which kind of brings us back to the tech stuff we were talking about earlier. Remember that RoleCatcher app they mentioned?
Yeah.
The AI thing that helps with like job hunting, practicing for interviews.
Oh, yeah, that was interesting. We're over here deep in the human side of childcare, and then suddenly it's like, boom, AI is changing the game, even when it comes to something as human-centered as caring for kids.
It's wild, right? Like, imagine applying for a childcare job and some algorithm is scanning your resume, deciding if you're a good fit. Or you're practicing your interview answers and it's a robot giving you feedback. Part of me's like, is this the future? Robots choosing who gets to shape young minds.
Yeah, it's a valid concern.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't think they're easy answers here. I mean, we have to at least acknowledge the potential downsides of automation. Like, will AI end up undervaluing that human touch that's so important in childcare? Will it be harder for passionate people to stand out when algorithms are making the first cut?
Right. Like, will a robot ever get the magic of reading Goodnight Moon with the perfect inflection? Or know when a kid needs a silly song to stop a meltdown?
Exactly. There's a something about those human interactions that, at least for now, technology just can't replicate. But then here's the other side of it, and this is where it gets interesting. What if AI could actually enhance the human element?
Okay, now you got me curious. How so?
Think about all the stuff childcare workers have to do besides actually being with the kids. Paperwork, schedules, keeping track of everything. What if AI could take over those more tedious tasks and do them super efficiently? Then the human caregivers, they'd be freed up to actually spend more quality time with the kids, doing the things that really matter.
So instead of AI taking over completely, it's more like AI as the ultimate helper. That makes me feel a little better, actually.
Right, it doesn't have to be either.
Yeah.
It's more about, like, how can we make this partnership work? Because at the end of the day, when it comes to child development, there's just something about that human connection, that empathy, that even the smartest AI can't replace.
Yeah.
At least, not yet.
Yeah, no doubt about that. It's like you can program a robot to do a lot of things, but can you program genuine care and understanding? I don't know about that.
It's a good point. And it makes you think about the bigger picture, right? Like, how much tech is too much when we're talking about kids' development? Where do we draw that line?
That's the million-dollar question, and it feels like the answer keeps changing as technology gets more and more advanced.
You said it. It's like trying to hit a moving target. But if I had to guess, I'd say the future of childcare, kind of like a lot of professions, is going to be about finding that balance, using what technology is good at, but also holding on to those human qualities that make us, well, human.
Totally. It's a balancing act, for sure. So let's zoom out for a sec. Someone's listening to this, thinking about a career in childcare. What's the big takeaway here? It seems like there's huge demand, tons of potential to make a difference, but also real challenges. The pay isn't great, and finding that work-life balance can be tough.
You hit the nail on the head. It's definitely not a decision to make lightly. But,
Yeah.
even if you're not planning to become a childcare worker yourself, the stuff we've talked about today, like how AI is changing the future of work, how important childcare is becoming in our society, and that whole idea of finding a job that both pays the bills and feels meaningful,
Yeah.
those are things we're all grappling with these days.
So true. No matter what career path you're on, this deep dive hopefully gave you some things to think about.
Exactly. And hopefully it sparks some curiosity, too. Because at the end of the day, asking questions, wanting to learn more, that's what keeps us moving forward.
Couldn't agree more. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. Until next time, keep those brains engaged, everyone.